We open up the book of Exodus, which is the story of the Egyptian bondage and the Exodus. And it makes sense that the very beginning of this text gives us some insight into what was the struggle between the Jewish people and Pharaoh, the Egyptians, and what we gained with the Exodus. Very close to the beginning of the Parsha, the Torah says the following: a new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. So Rashi, quoting the Talmud, says that there's a dispute between Rav and Shmuel, two great sages, Babylonian sages. Chad Amar, Chadash Mamish. One of those sages, we don't know which one, but one of them said literally it means a new king. And Chad Amar, and the other one says, Shenischash Gezeiresav. It's the same old Pharaoh, but his decrees were new. He's changed his whole attitude towards the Jewish people. Then when it says that who did not know Joseph, what does that mean? If you say it's a new king, then we can understand he didn't know Joseph because he was new generation. But if it's the same king, how could it be he didn't know Joseph? So Rashi says, Asa atzmo k'ilu lo yada. He made himself as if he didn't know. Okay, so what exactly are we supposed to take from this? This is to show us the evil of Pharaoh, that Pharaoh was such an ingrate. Here, Joseph saved Egypt from destruction, from total disintegration, with a terrible famine that devastated the world. If not for Joseph, who actually deciphered Pharaoh's dream that there will be 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine, and that they should prepare the grain in the 7 years of plenty to sustain the people in the 7 years of famine. He saved Egypt and other countries as well. So Pharaoh should have been so grateful to Joseph. If it was a new Pharaoh, it's possible that he didn't study history and he didn't know what really happened. So you can't blame him. But if it's the same Pharaoh, it's a very powerful lesson to see how ungrateful Pharaoh was and how we have to learn from that to show gratitude when someone does something for us. But that begs the question. The other opinion, that it was a new Pharaoh and he didn't know Joseph because he didn't know Joseph, what exactly is the lesson from that? Why is it so important for us to know that this new Pharaoh didn't know Joseph? What are we supposed to learn from that? If it's to teach us gratitude, well, he didn't know. How could he be grateful? If he knew and he didn't care, then it's the same as the other opinion. What's the difference between these two opinions? So one way of learning, just to put it in a few words, that when Joseph was crowned by Pharaoh to be his viceroy, to be the leader of Egypt, he renamed him Tzafnas Paneach, the one who could decipher hidden matters. The reason he gave him that name is because nobody knew how to interpret Pharaoh's dream. It was a hidden dream. And Joseph was the one who was able to reveal the meaning of that dream. So he called him Tzafnas Paneach. So that is what the Torah means over here. Yes, it was a different Pharaoh, and he did know Joseph. He knew of him, but he didn't know the name Joseph. He knew the name Tzafnas Paneach. So what's the difference? Why is that so crucial that he didn't know Joseph? Well, he named him by his Egyptian name, and so he didn't know his original Hebrew name. Big deal. Why is that so terrible? Why is the Torah trying to tell us that if that's what it means? So in order to understand that, we have to understand what exactly was meant by the name Tzafnas Paneach. He can decipher that which is hidden. And how does that contrast with the name Joseph? And we'll soon see how the contrast is a contrast between paganism and monotheism. It's a contrast between a pagan regime and a Torah, a godly, monotheistic way of looking at everything. What does a pagan worshiper believe in? He believes in worshiping the natural forces. The statues and the other icons were created as representations of natural phenomena. And then eventually it devolved into people literally worshiping a piece of stone and a piece of wood. But originally it was a representation of forces of nature. You have many cultures in which they worship and glorify the forces of nature. And their idea is to help reveal the power vested in nature. And since every natural phenomenon is different from every other natural phenomenon, there's rain, there's snow, there's wind, there's sun, there's so many other forces in this world, they worshipped every force. They were engaged in safnas paneach. They were engaged in finding the hidden powers vested in creation and revealing them so that they're functional, that they're producing what they're supposed to be producing. The ground, the earth shall produce its grain, and the rain shall come down from the heavens, and all the other natural phenomena should be fully implemented and fully revealed, because sometimes they're covered up, they're concealed. So they would offer sacrifices to appease these forces that they deified. And since there are so many forces, they believed in so many different gods. That's how Pharaoh viewed Joseph. That Joseph was in touch with the hidden powers in the world, and he was able to reveal them. So that concept of Joseph, Pharaoh believed in, and he adopted that concept. What he didn't know was the concept of Joseph. What does Joseph mean? Joseph means to add on something that is beyond that which exists, that which transcends existence. That's the difference between monotheism and paganism. The pagan looks only at the world and believes that everything that there is, every power that exists, is embedded within nature, and it's part of nature. There's nothing above nature, which one could say is the definition of a pantheistic worldview, where you believe you equate God with nature, which means that you limit God to nature. And since there are many natural forces, then that person will believe in many gods. Joseph means, no, there's something that you add on. There's nature, and there's something that goes beyond nature, that transcends nature. That was the uniqueness of Joseph. And this Pharaoh, this pagan Pharaoh, didn't believe in a Joseph concept. That's why Pharaoh, whether it's the same Pharaoh or a different Pharaoh, changed his name. What was so terrible about keeping the name Joseph? Or if he wanted it to be an Egyptian name, he should have translated Joseph into Egyptian. Pharaoh is making a statement that there is no transcendent being, that the God that he believed in was the God of nature and of natural forces. And that's why later on, when Moses came to him and says that God of Israel asked him to let my people go to serve me, he says, I don't know God. Now, what does that mean, he doesn't know God? It means the word for God that he used there is the tetragrammaton. That's the God that transcends nature. The tetragrammaton has the three tenses in one word, past, present, and future. It's a God that is a Yosef. He's added on to beyond the natural order. That's the essence of the way we believe in God. Pharaoh says, I don't know that God. I know gods, sure. I know natural forces that we worship. The Nile is a natural force, and so on. And that's where Joseph was so unique, because he was way ahead of the rest of society, recognizing the transcendence of God. And this explains also why the brothers didn't recognize Joseph. The brothers didn't recognize him because there are many explanations. The simplest one is that he was much older and he had a beard that he didn't have when he was sold, so they didn't recognize him. His voice probably changed, got deeper, and he looked like a different person. But there's a deeper explanation. He knew that Joseph's name was Tzavnas Paneach. Tzavnas Paneach is the one who reveals the hidden, but nothing more than the hidden, nothing more than what exists already in nature. But he knew Joseph was someone who transcended nature. Joseph was someone who was able to go beyond the natural order, and therefore they couldn't recognize him because he wasn't Joseph anymore. He was Tzavnas Paneach. He was the one who revealed the hidden, but not more than that. At any rate, that's the message that we get from the Pharaoh who didn't know Joseph. Pharaoh, Egypt, exile is a time that eclipses and covers up the reality of Yosef, of something that goes beyond. And even though we're not pagans, God forbid, and we worship one God, but sometimes we project our own natural laws, natural tendencies on a God. We feel that we are limited, but that all changed at Mount Sinai. At Mount Sinai, while not everyone was a Joseph, not everyone was capable of transcendence, but at Mount Sinai, that transcendent aspect of God was internalized within everyone. When God says, I am the Lord your God who has taken you out of the land of Egypt, God is saying, I, who I am, my transcendent being, is going to be part of you. So when we dig deep into us, we can discover the aspect of transcendence within us. And that's something that righteous people feel all the time, but it's not something that we all feel all the time because we're in Golus, we're in exile, we're part of Pharaoh's existence. We are at the best, Tzavnas Paneach, we can reveal hidden talents that we have, but to reach this transcendence requires of us great effort. The coming of Mashiach will change all that. That transcendent aspect of God that we have within us will be fully revealed to the whole world. Everyone will recognize the Joseph. Everyone will recognize that we're not just Tzavnas Paneach, but we are also Joseph.